Hey everyone, my name is Patrick. This is the channel formerly known as Not the Bees, and it's now called Hyve Minds, but all the content is pretty much going to be the same, and this is PlayStation Plus or Minus for August 2018. The PS4 games for this month are Dead by Daylight and Mafia 3, and there aren't any Vita games this month, which honestly feels like a really good thing for me. Instead, PS4 users can download Knowledge is Power, a PlayLink multiplayer quiz game that I have absolutely no interest in playing, and also the PSVR horror game Here They Lie, which I can't play because I don't have PSVR. So this month I've only got 2 games to review, and that means I can go into a little bit more detail on both of them than I usually do. Let's start with Mafia 3. Mafia 3 is a sandbox crime game that's really trying its little heart out to have a gripping crime HBO drama feeling story, but doesn't really manage anything better than your average Assassin's Creed game. Our main character is Lincoln Clay, and yes, that's actually what they named him. In terms of on-the-nose character naming, a black guy named Lincoln Clay ranks right above the sci-fi protagonist from Dead Space, Isaac Clarke, and right below the racing game I'm working on where the main character will be named Danica Earnhardt. Lincoln Clay arrives home after serving in the Vietnam War and is immediately swept up into a bank heist around which the prologue revolves. You'll switch back and forth between the events leading up to the heist and the heist itself for the first hour or two, and to connect these timeline shifts we have these documentary-style cutscenes that are ongoing throughout the entire game, and those serve to foreshadow upcoming events as well as deliver really obvious and clumsy exposition to explain who people are and why we should care. Surprise, surprise, the Mafia betrays Lincoln after the heist, spurring him on to take down the Mafia in a series of linear missions and outpost clearing quests that form the core of the gameplay loop of Mafia 3. It's here that the story comparisons to some of the older Assassin's Creed games really becomes apparent. Young man is wronged by the big criminal empire of the moment and proceeds to dismantle it piece by piece, typically by going to a map marker in the sandbox and killing everyone there. It's Assassin's Creed 2 by way of Far Cry 3 with about 80% less Italians. And the dull, lifeless city you're given to explore mostly feels like a commute between missions. My issue with these sandbox crime games is how little their gameplay has evolved since their inception. Every game about organized crime now has to be a sandbox because that's just how they've always been ever since GTA 3, and in terms of gameplay structure, nothing has changed. Drive to the map marker, kill all the dudes. Drive here, shoot all the dudes. Some games have made attempts to change up the formula, like a few of the missions in GTA 5, or the Saints Row series as a whole, actually, but Mafia 3 came out in 2016, and there is nothing to do in the game besides drive to places and shoot dudes. Ooh, a nightclub. Can't wait to shoot a bunch of dudes there. Ooh, the church. Wonder what I'm gonna do there. You're gonna drive to the place and you're gonna shoot some dudes. I can drive around a sandbox in about 50 other games, and I can shoot dudes in basically every game ever. Mafia 3 really adds nothing of substance to the sandbox crime genre. No, wait, I guess it does add a few interminable, excruciatingly dull forced walking scenes. Okay, can we just put a moratorium on these fucking things? I'm so tired of trying to play a game and being forced to walk in a straight line for minutes at a time doing nothing. These walking missions are kind of a microcosm of the great paradox of sandbox games. Like, they're called sandboxes, and yet all I seem to do is drive back and forth between objective markers on the map, and then when I get there I either do something completely linear for story missions or just kill all the dudes if it's a normal racket mission. Even the dicking around in this game is extremely lacking. I get that they're going for a more serious tone, but come on. It's like the physics engine itself is stopping me from having fun. In any fun sandbox game, running into traffic will end with you ragdolling down the road until all your skin is scraped off. Here's what happens in Mafia 3. There's nothing wrong with setting a serious tone for your game, but you don't score any points in my book for being serious and realistic if you're also boring. And that's what Mafia 3 is. Boring. Not to mention, the gameplay's kinda janky and full of some seriously questionable design choices. Lincoln Clay inexplicably seems to possess Batman's detective vision, so he can see enemies through walls, but only seems to be able to do it while standing completely still. The ubiquity of detective vision in games these days is a particular pet peeve of mine. This is a subject I've wanted to make a whole video on for a while now, and I'm sure I'll get around to it eventually. In short, detective vision bugs me because it's a visual design crutch. Mafia 3's creators didn't want to have to worry about whether enemies would be visible in their environments, so hey, just give the players some shitty detective vision so they can just look for the red outlines and shoot at those. Plus, it turns off if you do anything, but there's no limit to it. So I often just found myself mashing the button to activate it, which is the touchpad by the way, as I moved around just so I could see clearly. Not only does it bring nothing new to the table, Mafia 3 can't even get its core gameplay right. Core gameplay, by the way, that's been perfected down to basically being a science by other, better third-person shooters. I could go on about the other things that bother me about this game, like how Lincoln Clay never feels like a real person, just a boring yes man who takes all his orders from a CIA dude and a radio DJ, or how the upgrade system just gives you the illusion of choice and lets you choose between a bunch of equally dull ways to shoot dudes, or the excessively long loading times, but there's really no need. Mafia 3 is a by-the-numbers, indescribably dull game and a total waste of potential. Minus. Oh, but the music is pretty good. You got that, I guess. Dead by Daylight, on the other hand, suffers from sort of the opposite problem as Mafia 3. Whereas Mafia 3 is safe and familiar to the point of boredom, Dead by Daylight struggled to engage me as a player thanks to some overly complex systems, as well as some technical shortcomings. Oof, that was dry as hell. Mafia is boring as shit, and Dead by Daylight is glitchy and weird. How's that? Dead by Daylight is an asymmetrical, multiplayer-only game where 4 survivor players attempt to escape one powerful killer player. As a survivor, you'll pick your character and loadout and then run around a procedurally generated arena trying to start generators. As the killer, on the other hand, you'll pick your character and loadout and then run around a procedurally generated arena trying to kill all the pesky kids trying to start generators. I feel like I say this a lot, but I'll at least give Dead by Daylight credit for having a somewhat unique idea. The problem is, as usual, in the execution. For one, this has very clearly been pretty sloppily ported over from the PC. From the cursor selector to the terrible frame rate and constant connection issues, I was thoroughly unimpressed by the technical side of this game as a whole. As the killer especially, you'll begin to wonder if that's the bloodlust getting to your head or just the slippery controls and weird frame rate betraying you for the 20th time this game. The core gameplay is quite simple when you get down to it, which is probably why Behavior Interactive felt the need to add on a surprisingly deep procedural progression system and a bunch of different survivors and killers to play as. The procedurally generated blood web means you can unlock lots of different perks for each character, and the points I got from playing let me upgrade and progress a lot faster than I expected to. Unfortunately, these systems fail to accomplish what most multiplayer progression sets out to do: provide variety and incentive to play. To me, unnecessary progression systems in a multiplayer-only game tell me that the developers didn't have a lot of confidence in the inherent fun of their game. While I admit to typically being a sucker for progression systems in games like Killing Floor 2 or the Borderlands games, I can only get invested if playing the game is fun enough to warrant playing a lot to get small upgrades that change the way you play the game a little at a time. Dead by Daylight's gameplay is sadly a little too bare bones to make the upgrades worth the time investment needed to get them. In my admittedly short time playing, I didn't get the feeling that survivors had a particularly unique identity. Like this guy, 1% bonus to luck. Great. Temporarily reduce your noise level while vaulting? Maybe if the game was fun enough to make me want to get into the meta, all this minutia might actually mean something, but it's not like these are characters in Overwatch or different classes in TF2. Your basic strategy is the same, and most games feel very samey too, no matter who I pick or what killer I'm up against. I'm sorry, but giving me an item that moderately increases repair speed is not the secret sauce that's gonna fix your game about standing next to a generator watching a bar fill up and make it fun to play. It's just not. A 5% increased chance to crit in an RPG might feel like a decent reward, but a slightly increased chance to find a slightly better item that might slightly increase my running speed? Yeah, sorry, that's not worth my time, and it's not worth slogging through all the connection issues and then to join a pretty boring game to get those things. Now, would this game be fun with friends? Yeah, probably it would. But that's the inherent issue with reviewing these multiplayer-only games. They're almost certainly more fun with friends, but for one thing, none of my friends play PS4 online, and also that doesn't excuse flawed design. I can't really recommend a game based on the assumption that playing it with friends is slightly more tolerable than playing alone. Skipping rocks with my friends by the lake is fun, but I wouldn't recommend you pay $30 for the privilege of standing around throwing rocks with strangers. Not sure how much sense that made. That slightly tortured analogy aside, Dead by Daylight gets a minus from me. And amazingly, that's gonna do it for this month. Let me know if you agree or disagree with me on the games. Like, comment, subscribe, all that stuff, you know the drill, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.